Well, good morning, everybody. Let me just begin with a statement that I know is shared by, I presume, everybody here, which is simply that it's a pleasure to reflect upon the contributions that Lisa has made to the field of Christian ethics, and it's an even greater pleasure to be part of this symposium that honors her, not only for her intellectual achievements, but for the teacher, the mentor, the colleague, the friend, and the role model that she has been for people like ourselves who have had the good and graceful benefit of knowing her over the years. The topic assigned to me is expansive, Catholic social thought and praxis. And somehow 15 minutes does not seem quite sufficient to the task. So let me narrow the topic down quite a bit. Right? I will reflect upon a single central theme of Catholic social thought, one that's come up already several times, the common good, and how Lisa has contributed to our understanding of that central theme of the Catholic social tradition. Certainly, the common good is a debatable idea. Many doubt the existence of a common good in a world so pluralistic. And even if one believes in a common good, one may still harbor doubts about whether we will ever see consensus on its implications. Perhaps we ought to remind ourselves at the outset that the idea of the common good was philosophical, not theological, in origin. Before composing the Politics, Aristotle gathered dozens of constitutions from a variety of places, where he engaged in an exercise in what today we might call comparative politics. How did various people conceive of the political order? What was the aim of politics? What was the vision of a good society operative in the various constitutions that he assembled? Sparta's aristocracy and its love of military virtue, an oligarchy's pursuit of the benefits of wealth, an empire's grasp for power. These and other political frameworks were studied by Aristotle. Throughout his work, he was keenly aware of the difference between a politics where an individual or group ruled for the sake of self-interest, or a form of governance or for the sake of the well-being of the governed. Instead, indeed, the difference between tyranny or monarchy, between oligarchy or aristocracy, between democracy or polity, was determined precisely by the question of whether the self or group interest was being served versus rule for the sake of the good of all. It is by this approach that Aristotle could speak the language of the common good. The common good pertained to what allows each one and each community to attain their good. If we go back even further a bit to Plato's Republic, the reader finds in Book 6 the famous allegory of the ship with the short-sighted captain and a dysfunctional crew. The metaphor of ship of state comes from this source, as well as the image of a ship of fools. Plato used the story to express his grave doubts about the possibilities of democracy ever serving the good of people. For Plato, what was needed was a class of rulers, the guardians, who, due to superior knowledge and ability, rule for the sake of the rest. Indeed, for Plato, it was conceivable that the best state might be led by a single philosopher king. While not quite as skeptical as his mentor, Aristotle too harbored doubts about democracy and thought that authority was exercised best when it was in the hands of those wise enough to rule. The image of authority that presumed an individual would best fill the role of caring for the community was inherited by Augustine, who also thought politics was best when someone was in charge. And Aquinas, both in his writing on the law and on De Regno, implies that it is the prince, the king, or the emperor who is entrusted with the care of the community. In short, Catholicism took on the presumption that someone knows what the common good is, as well as what is the best means to attain it. And that person was the ruler. Even when later Catholic social thought came to terms with, or at least considered the possibility of, political arrangements that were less hierarchical, it held on to the idea that the common good was knowable and that it could be deduced through a sort of natural law reasoning. Without denying the valuable role played by many thinkers, nor the many changed realities on the ground, I want, for the sake of time, to simply propose that Vatican II was a key moment for a reconceptualization of the common good in Catholic social thought. Now, whether it was Rahner's student, Walbart Bjumran, and his book on the Third Church, or Rahner himself in his essay on a world church, the experience of Vatican II was the moment when institutional Catholicism confronted the fact of pluralism at many levels, including variety in the ways to articulate the common good. Thus, unlike those who argued from a hierarchy of goods, relating subordinate goods to the highest good, Catholic social thought in the modern era does not stress the ultimate end of our life with God in its treatment of the common good, but talks rather about the means and conditions for attaining the good. The method is more programmatic and heuristic. Its definition is governed by two fundamental principles. The common good must include the good of each person and the good of the whole person. This approach to the common good talks of the means and conditions for its attainment. It was stated by John the 23rd in Mater et Magistra, reaffirmed by him in Pacem in Terris, and then in paragraph 74 was quoted in Gaudium et Spes. In the paragraph discussing the common good, the Council Fathers acknowledged, and I quote, "The people who come together in the political community are many and diverse, and they have every right to prefer divergent solutions." Unquote. While acknowledging there must be authority in society to direct the community towards the common good, such authority is not to act, quote, in a mechanical or despotic fashion, but by acting above all as a moral force which appeals to each one's freedom and sense of responsibility, unquote. And finally, in that same paragraph, it's noted that the authority must operate with, quote, a dynamic concept of the good, unquote. Therefore, Catholic social thought can appeal for partners in human development and social welfare without requiring agreement on Catholicism's ultimate claims about the nature of the supreme good. Still, as we all know, if a society is pluralistic, so too will its politics be, not only at the level of final ends, but also in more immediate goals and strategies for attaining some ends. How can the common good prescribe a set of policies in such a setting? Here is where a more praxis-oriented approach to the common good can be of help. And Lisa has made a contribution to revising our notion of the common good, making it both more realistic politically and helpful strategically. Conflict arises in politics not only because we differ about the proper goals, but also due to the richness and depth of the human good and the limits of our resources, time, energy, and effort. Conflict is not always due to sin or evil intent, but it arises among good people seeking worthwhile goals. For example, follow any debate over federal, state, or local budgets, and one witnesses conflict over priorities. More money for education may mean less for infrastructure. More for combating climate change can mean less for Medicaid. More for research means less for public parks. The conflicts are abundant and inevitable on this side of history. Hence, conflict ought not always be treated in negative terms. Too often, Catholicism has employed eschatological symbols, envisioning harmony, fullness, abundance, and lack of any real conflict. However, stressing the peace and harmony of the final age is not particularly helpful in making policy for this one. Lisa has pointed us in a useful direction. For instance, her essays on globalization and the common good, and more recently, social justice and the common good, remind us that the common good includes subcategories like mutual responsibility, subsidiarity, and participation. As she has written, and I quote, "The continuing vitality of Catholic social thought and the concept of the common good cannot be discovered by employing a model of society or of social theory that works with the old top-down, orderly, and hierarchical structures of hierarchical categories of social structure and social authority that globalization now renders more and more irrelevant." Do you remember writing that? While she has suggested, quote, Catholic social teaching has sometimes been guilty of impotent moralism, she also notes recent Catholic thought pays more attention to practical activism and to interreligious cooperation. Her own interest in and work on behalf of the Catholic Peacebuilding Network is an illustration of what such activism and cooperation look like. When speaking out of a substantive description of the common good, Lisa has forthrightly rejected any formulation that overlooks communities whose voice is not heard in determining the good of each and every person. She approvingly cites the work of David and the late Bob Schreiter, who insist that defining the content of the common good must be done through an inductive and dialogical, inclusive and transversal manner. She notes the work of Martha Nussbaum on capability theory as an example of an approach that is, quote, inductively elaborated and continually revised. It's an approach that is pluralistic without being, her bugaboo, relativistic. Retrieving the notion of subsidiarity, Lisa calls for increased dialogue between Catholic social teaching and non-governmental actors in civil society, particularly those grassroots communities that make possible broad participation by women, by laborers, migrants, indigenous people, and the poor when there are conversations about the common good. This gives subsidiarity not the vertical cast that it has long had within the tradition, but rather promotes a horizontal way of thinking about subsidiarity that entails consultation and discernment. In sum, for Lisa, the common good is not only a normative ideal, but it is also, and I love this phrase of hers, it's an incipient form of life. The common good as an incipient form of life. One that seeks to find or build where it can't be found those grassroots and intermediate organizations working to establish, to quote John the 23rd, all those social conditions which favor the full development of human personality. Lisa knows that political democracy is not a process to determine what is truth with a capital T. Rather, it's a path to how we might learn to live together. That we can handle conflict by talking with each other is a fundamental commitment of peacebuilding, and also of understanding and working for the common good. Throughout a distinguished career of teaching and learning, writing and reading, Lisa has modeled a way of life, a praxis that exemplifies what an American and global citizen looks like who serves the common good. Thank you.